guys, and welcome to the 504. I'm Sheba Turk, and just as we mark the anniversary of the Women's March, a new book is reflecting on current concerns in America in a very creative way. This book is titled "It Occurs to Me That I Am America," and it brings together more than 50 artists and writers to address the anxiety that many Americans are feeling. Tom Piazza is a contributor, and Jonathan Santlofer is the editor. Again, it's called "It Occurs to Me That I Am America," and they're joining us tonight to talk about it. Thank you guys for being here.
It's great to be here.
This is such a timely book, such an important book. Tell everyone why you guys decided to do this.
Well, basically, you know, it was sort of the day after the election, and after I pulled myself off the floor, I thought, well, what can one person do? So I knew a lot of artists and a lot of writers, and I just started emailing and calling and saying, would you be willing to write a story, make a painting, do something, and we'll put it, you know, as you just said perfectly, talk about your anxieties, talk about our civil liberties, talk about what we're proud of, what we want to preserve, what we need to preserve, you know, and I said, deal with everything, deal with race, gender, all the things that we preserve and need.
And this is what people are actually talking about right now, which is why I like it. But you guys did it in a more creative way. It's done through fiction. It's done through art. Talk about how important that is, highlighting the use of art in getting this message across.
Well, I think what artists always try to do is steer for questions that are important to people both on a social level and on an emotional level. And it's one of the things that journalism can't always do, you know. So if you read through the book, what was remarkable to me in reading the contributions of the other contributors was just the extraordinary emotional impact of so many of these stories that deal with the situations of somebody who has come from a country that you know, is maybe being crossed off the list of acceptable places to come from. The degree of hope, aspiration, heartbreak sometimes, it's very achievable. It's one of the projects of fiction always, anyway. And so this book is a wonderful way of bringing these questions in, both in, that we think about in the social sphere, into the personal sphere as well. That's what fiction does best, I think.
Yeah.
You know, you said something about the art. I started my life, you know, sort of half and half in art and in writing, and I just thought it was the perfect thing to bring together. Plus, it gives you something beautiful to look at.
It certainly does.
I wanted the book, you know, somebody said to me, how do you get the other side to read the book? And I said, you know, these are, as Tom just said, these are fictional stories that just make you think about what we have. And the art is beautiful, outrageous sometimes, funny. But, you know, I wanted a beautiful book that people would be proud to have, and I hope it will outlast this moment, because it's about our country, what we want to preserve, you know?
Yeah, you bring up a great point. How do you get people who are not like-minded to read something like this, right? Because we're on right now as President Trump is giving his State of the Union address. So I said, if you're watching this channel, then you probably just didn't want to see that. So maybe this is the book that you want to read. But how do you get people who are, right, the reason that you wrote this book, to open it and change their minds?
Well, I'll say something, and then Tom as well. I mean, my hope is that in certain families, somebody will find the book. Doesn't necessarily, the book is not a political, you know what I said? I didn't want people to write political essays. As Tom said, fiction tells stories. I'm interested in storytelling. So if you tell a story that, you know, I'll give you a very, very quick example. So we were talking about Joyce Carol Oates, who's in the book. She said she had been working on a story. It was sitting in a desk drawer from years ago, and it's about the future. And when she took it out, she said, oh my gosh, it's happening now.
Wow.
And so she worked on that for the book. So you just you know, the power of storytelling. We all love stories. I think you can get anybody to read these stories, and they'll start to just think. That's all. You know, I don't want, you know, didn't want to add to the polemics, the fighting. I didn't want that. So
I think you make a great point.
Thank you.
Well, and I think also, you know, you ask, how do you get people who don't necessarily agree on an ideological basis, you know, or a political basis, to read a book like this? You know, maybe you do and maybe you don't, but I think the key, the door in, is that we all share experiences as human beings. We all share experiences of being included and being excluded, no matter who we are and no matter who we voted for. There are certain things in human experience that are shared across the board. And I think that if you can get people to enter at that human place, a lot of times the kind of bitter, insistent adherence to some kind of ideology tends to kind of evaporate a little bit, and you can find what you share as humans. I think that's one of the hopes of the book as well.
Yeah, that's great.
Absolutely. I know that Alice Walker, who's in here, wrote The Color Purple, and some of the people wrote autobiographical things that become stories, and she talks about her father voting for FDR and going and voting with. And there were men there with rifles to keep the people they didn't want to vote away. And, I said to her, do you want to expand upon that story? And she said, I can't, but it's enough. It's just enough. And it's enough to make people think about, what these things are. Or so many people did that, what Tom says. There's stories that we all share, that we've all been through as human beings, as Americans,
That's what I like about this book. You guys are really focusing on the story, which at the end of the day, people get what they get out of a story, right? And so you invite them to come and read it and to share in the experience, and what they get out of it is what they get out of it.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for so much for being with us tonight.
Well,
thank you.
You can find the book, It Occurs to Me That I Am America, on Amazon. It is just under $20 right now. And if you're vegan or a vegetarian, you probably spend a lot of time reminding people about your special diet. Coming up on the 504, we'll talk about a woman who came up with an interesting solution, I'll call it. Plus, have you ever wondered how some people get so many followers on social media and you guys are so impressed? Guess what? The research shows a lot of them are buying their followers. Stick with us.